Okay, welcome to another stream of Lyrebird Edits. And today we're going to be looking at part 3 of Nick of Night's story about the future in which everyone is immortal, but people can get their memories skimmed away and reset. And this follows the story of a detective named David who's investigating a murder conducted by someone who had a faulty reset. So this is part 3 of that story, and over the past week we've been looking at parts 1 and parts 2. So I'll paste a link back into this page here. I'll pop it into YouTube as well, why not? There we go. So this is the story that I've been working on for a little while, and I've had a good chat with Nick, just through Reddit messaging, just about what he wants this story to be in a structural sense, and I think he has a couple of plans to collect all the parts together from this story. I think there are 6 or 7 parts in total now that have been published, and so yeah, that's going to be really interesting to see not only how it comes together in terms of it being part 1 to part 7 as a story, but what sort of final form it will take. So yeah, thanks again for Nick for sending, or for allowing me to come and to edit his story. It's been really cool to have something that you can edit back to back, so that we can all have some sort of continuous story to work on. I think I've done that once or twice in the past, where people have sent me different parts of their stories, and I always like doing that. I like having that continuity between streams too. In addition to having the one-shots, it's nice to have a mix of both, I think. And that way, if new viewers come in, they don't get overwhelmed by, like, part 17, we're up to this one today. But yeah, it's nice to have something that starts and finishes over a course of a couple of weeks. So I think I'll try and go through all of the parts, if Nick will allow me. So that will tie me up for a couple of weeks too. Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to do. So yes. Just wait for a couple of minutes in case anyone pops in. But good morning, TTLACC. I see you in the viewer list. How are you doing? Hope you're good. Your week's been exciting. And what I might do while I wait for a little while, let's just copy paste this into the untitled document. So Nick of Night, this is part 3, Friends Immortal. Good. If you're just joining me now, what I'm not doing is plagiarizing. I do have permission to do this, it's all good. So paste it here. It's white text because of the, is this, what was that font I liked? Was it Roberto? Maybe. Probably the most important thing I should do is change it from, white to black. There we go. I don't think it was Roberto. What did I edit part 1 in? It was Vidana, right? The title of Roberto. I'm not usually one for fonts. I just stick with whatever word throws at me as the default, to be honest. I think when I first started writing, I was really interested in figuring out what kind of font my story would be in. And then I realized I had no typography skill sets or design interest, and so I just stuck with the original default after a while. I had an idea when I was younger too. If I had a character with multiple entities coming in with their different thoughts, and I wanted to personify those thoughts with different fonts. But I pretty quickly realized that would be something that I could that would take up a lot of my time. Instead of writing, I just focus on font choices. HTTLSAC, what kind of font defines me as a person? That's the question, isn't it? What kind of font draws out my inner beauty? What kind of font makes me seem smart without actually being smart? Yeah, I don't know. And like every book has a slightly different font. They all look roughly the same to me. But um, yeah, I'm sure this is like the realm of designers when they think, what does this font mean? What does this font convey? And as a reader, I just don't even think about it. I just dive in and I'm like, yep, here are words. I know how to read them. I'm probably breaking the heart of a font designer, but that's okay. Yeah, I like the idea that every individual has their own unique font. What does this font say about me? Um, yeah. Also, this story isn't called Welcome to Magnolia. It's this was the writing prompts essence, I suppose. So, excuse me. So I actually don't know what the story's going to be called. I haven't asked Nick for the title. I should, and when I get back, when he gets back to me, I'll go and replace Welcome to Magnolia with whatever he wants to call this story. Um, but I think it's like a good sort of working title just for the writing prompt. Gonna raise the volume so I can hear myself. Good. All right. Okay. Why don't we dive in? Let's tackle this. How many words have we got to play with today? This might be another short-ish stream. Yeah, hour and a half, 2 hours. We'll see what we can do. Nick was saying that a lot of the advice that I was giving about dialogue tagging and breaking up the dialogue tree so that it's more readable in terms of slowing the pace down, giving the characters a bit more to do, some actions to break up the dialogue. Nick says that part 3 he hasn't edited it according to what I've said in part 1 and part 1 and 2, but he feels that part 3 has a bit more of a fluid nature between the dialogue and the characters and what's going on around them too. So we'll keep that in mind. I don't want to just give the same advice over and over again. Nick knows that the parts 1 and 2 need to have the dialogue couched within the narrative a bit stronger. So if I see the same thing here, I'll make a small note of it, but I won't beat it over the head because Nick's already aware of it. Alrighty, so in the end of the last part 2, we had Nicholas, sorry, not Nicholas, he's the author. We had David the detective teaming up with Juliet, who is the chief operative of the company that's responsible for skimming people's memories off. They're heading towards an underwater facility in New York, which is an unknown location for them. And within this underwater facility, there is potentially a factory that used to produce clones. Now, clones in this universe range from being like a rumor to completely unknown. So, the gist of the story is David is investigating the murder of a skimming scientist by one of his patients who has had a malfunctioning skim. This patient believes that everyone is a clone, and he believes he can prove it. And he provided the coordinates to this underwater cloning factory. So I think that's where we're going to head today, to this cloning facility. Good. Sorry, just give me one moment. I'll be back in a tick. There we go. I think the last thing I want to do is to blow my nose on camera directly into the microphone. I think that would be horrible, so I spared you all the sound of that, and yeah. Anyway, let's dive right in. So we've got Welcome to Magnolia. Excuse me. Welcome to Magnolia Part 3. Good. I think my reading voice should be a bit better today, because I'm feeling good, and no sore throat, and just a bit of a blocked nose, so that's fine. The voices in our head scream for justice, for help, to be set free, and they will be set free, even if it means the end of everything, of everyone. This place is our proof of what happened. It is our justification too, for the billion deaths that we are to be responsible for, the billion lives we shall create from the ashes, for bringing back humanity. So this is like a little excerpt, I guess. Maybe not a text excerpt from Dr. Eisenstat's? Dr. Omen? The doctor and the patient. I'd like to keep this together, and I'd like to a billion deaths. When I read it, I naturally wanted to read billions, for the billions of deaths that we're about to get. Because we're so used to hearing phrases like millions of deaths, millions of. But having it pronounced singularly is it's not incorrect. It's just a bit unusual. So what would I suggest instead? It is our justification too for the billions of deaths. Let's see what's the billions of deaths that we are responsible for. We are to be responsible for the billions of lives we shall create from the ashes, bringing back up humanity. I think fragmenting it this way looks good, but I think billions of might work a little bit better. That's probably just personal taste. Nick, if you want to ignore that, I wouldn't lose any sleep at night. Just to me as a reader, it sounds a little singular, I guess. It's not wrong, it's just I'll read through it again a bit later and see if it strikes me the same way. A drink, sir. It's as much a robot as it's an android. As although its head and arms somewhat resemble a human's, it has no legs, just a wide central body that drapes down to the floor. Yeah, that's good. I like how sometimes you probably want to keep it in the same paragraph. Other times you want to break it off, put it down. I think that's fine too. Let me read down a bit more first, and then we'll come back and edit. The plating that covers it is a kind of palladium white, and it sparkles just a little too brightly under the lights. Yeah, I'll have a whiskey. Its eyes turn green, telling me it's about to hit me with a litany of warnings. So alcohol can have many adverse effects on the human's body, including but not limited to... Just get him a damn whiskey, Juliet says from a seat adjacent to mine, and water for me. The android's eyes fade to a worried yellow as it makes a hasty retreat down the aisle. On the rocks, I yell after it, before leaning back into the cushy, luxurious seat. I might have already done everything there is for me to do 100 times before, but there are some things that are not open to someone like me. Things I'd reserved myself to never doing, such as flying in a T-720 across the plagued ocean, being waited on by an android about to drink real whiskey, not the shit they brew up in Mandy's. Must be nice, I say, to live like this. Nicer than your life. No nicer than your life, Julia replies. I snort, come on. I mean it. She turns back. Look at me. Imagine yourself in my position. You have your whiskey every night. You have androids taking care of your necessities. And instead, focus on leisure. Gee, that sounds terrible. No, you don't understand. After a while, it doesn't matter what you do, or how good it felt once to do it. It all becomes stale. My life is no less repetitive, and no more interesting than yours. Let's agree to disagree. And there's a gentle hum as the android makes its way towards me. He puts a glass with one ice cube down on the wooden table in front of me, then pause, make it a double. I watched amused as its eyes glow ever so slightly green, swallows back to annoyance, and its eyes fade back to a normal colour, nonplussed white. It then pours Juliet a glass of water with 2 ice cubes, before taking its leave. You should have a real drink, I say. It'll loosen up your mind. Helps you think. Let's agree to disagree, she says mockingly. I can't help but laugh. Oh, I can't help laughing. Outside my window, the plagued ocean looks like a huge, glimmering sheet of black ice. I try to imagine what it must have looked like back when it was water, when it was habitable. That's the price of war, Juliet says. I turn to see her looking at me. Goddamn tragedy is what it is. Also why we can't afford another war. There's already so little of the planet left habitable. Only a handful of settlements, and none so grand as Magnolia. Imagine if Magnolia was lost. Why would it be? Why would there be a war? Even if it turned out we're all clones. What if half of us turn out to be clones, for example? Oh, I don't know, maybe we could all just try getting along? It doesn't work like that. What doesn't? Human nature. We're both quiet after that, and I can't stop myself from yawning. The nav system will take us to the coordinates, and from there, we'll have to get our hands a little dirty. The whiskey is like honey on my tongue. I close first the window shutter, then my eyes, and I allow my body to relax. Good, let's cut that there, and we'll go back up. So a drink, sir. It's as much a robot as it is an android. Why this change? Let me read it out loud again. It's as much a robot as it is an android. There's a rhythm to that. It's as much a robot as it's an android. It works, it fits, and maybe, again, just like this billions of it's versus it is, it might come down to a bit of personal taste, but I personally prefer how that flows. Although its head strikes me as a bit funny, so how would I write that? It's as much a robot as it is an android. Full stop, break it up. Although its head and arms somewhat resemble a human's, it has no legs, just a wide central body that drapes down to the floor. Yep, so you can separate out these two phrases with a full stop, and we still know that the idea is continuing forward. Comma after wide. The plating that covers it is kind of palladium white. It sparkles just a little too brightly under the lights. Here is an interesting example of where the narrator's voice and the character's voice. The character is the narrator, and the narrator is the character. The plating that covers it is a kind of palladium white. I think it works. I think it fits David's character to sort of stumble over himself and take pause for thought before he makes up his mind about what kind of colour it is. The plane that covers it is a kind of palladium white, and sparkles just a little too brightly under the lights. We'll probably want to separate that with a comma. Yes, yeah, I'll have a whiskey. Can I say, may I take a whiskey? Personal preference, maybe just a suggestion. I'll put a comment there. Maybe this suits David's voice a bit better. Your call. Yeah, ditto with these things too. Like a lot of the suggestions I made so far are personal preference. This probably isn't. I keep that change if that's a bit. It makes the sentence flow a bit better. Eyes turn green, comma, telling me it's about to hit me with a litany of warnings. This is a really clean, going to be a really clean example of how you can take a sentence that tells you something and with a tiny change make it showing you. Its eyes turn green. Oh lord. It's about to hit me with a litany of warnings, isn't it? So really all you've done is take out the word telling me and put in, oh lord, it's about to hit me with a litany of warnings, isn't it? ellipsis. You want to use that because this sentence here originally told us the detail. The minor change I introduce David's voice to the equation, in addition to showing the detail. It's not strictly showing, but it's sort of... It's a much more effective way of getting the narrator to couch story information within the narrative instead of getting them to explain everything. Like, let's say that he was in a restaurant at the top of a big tower. It overlooked like a future neo-noir city or something. He wants to order whiskey, so he taps a knuckle against the glass that's overlooking the city. And he inputs a few orders with his knuckle, and a robot comes. So if you were to write it like this sentence was originally structured, you probably say, I tapped the view screen overlooking the city, and ordered a whiskey over the wireless. Something splashed up telling me that alcohol was bad for me, blah, blah, blah. What you could instead do is you could sort of say something like, I used my knuckle to smudge the windows on the opposite building instead of ordering a whiskey or something. Not a great example, and I wasn't able to sort of formalize my words very well then. But there are subtle differences that you as a writer can help your narrator to bring into the world. It's one of the real strengths about writing in this kind of manner with a noir detective as a narrator is that there's huge opportunity for their voice to bleed through into the narrative. The more of this you do, probably the better. Like, there'll come a limit where you just want him to shut up. But here, like, even "Oh Lord," I don't know if they even say "Oh Lord" in the future. Probably not. Maybe something else. Or something similar. It has a lot more voice to it and a lot more spark. So alcohol can have many adverse effects on a human's body, including comma, but not limited to, comma, just getting a down whiskey, Juliet says, from a seat adjacent to mine. And a water for me. The android's eyes fade to a worried yellow as it makes a hasty retreat down the aisle. On the rocks, I yell after it before leaning back into the cushy, luxurious seat. I want to, I'm gonna get rid of that before leaning back into my seat. Now I'll tell you in a sec why. Memory foam. Oh, I love memory foam. Yeah, so comfy. Yeah. That's kind of the impression I got from this too, to TLACC. Cushy, luxurious seat. I don't want to call it like comfy seat. What I want to do is to get him to stop and then go back into it. I yell before leaning back into my seat. The fake leather on this thing is so soft I feel my ass practically sinking into it. Now, why did I want to make that change there? Simply describing it as cushy and luxurious has the same overall effect as this, but this paragraph here is about luxury. It's about the fact that despite him having lived for so long, he still has creature comforts, right? Now, starting off with my seat, and then the fake leather on this thing is so soft I feel my ass practically sinking into it. Imagine the price tag. I might have already done everything there is for me to do 100 times before, but there are some things that are not open to someone like me. Get rid of the things this should be resigned myself to never doing, comma, such as flying in a T-70 across the plagued ocean, being waited on by an android, sitting on what I guess was actual leather, about to drink real whiskey, not the shit they brew up in Mandy's. So, expanding out what the chair is. If you don't like this, what you could also do is just take out the cushy, luxurious, and put my leather seat, and then the luxury image is completed. But I think not mentioning what it is in the first paragraph and then making him go back and going, P.S. the seat's really nice, has a bit of like a. Sometimes when you stop the narrative flow, you highlight what comes next. So really what's happening here is just he's sitting on a seat and thinking, yeah, this is nice. I don't get to do this often. But when you crash here, this crashes in, I think. I think this may be a little stronger too. This ties in with the luxury theme, so have a think about if that's going to be effective. I like I'd probably repeat real liver, about to drink real whiskey. So must be nice, I say, to live like this. No nice living your life, Juliet replies. I snort, come on. I mean it. I mean, I don't want to repeat mean here. Maybe get rid of that and just put, I mean it, I mean, doesn't have a nice flow to it. I mean it, just... She turns to look at me. Imagine yourself in my position. You have your whiskey every night. Oh, hypothetical you. You have your whiskey every night. You have androids. Take care of your necessities. Taking care of your every necessity. And necessities. Caring for every necessity. Instead focus on your worries and your strife. And instead focus on leisure. If your android's taking care of every necessity, and instead focus on your leisure means that your androids focus on your leisure, even though it's a broken phrase. Let's fix this up anyway. You have androids taking care of your every necessity. Something like that. You have androids taking care of your every necessity. Instead of worrying about any of life's troubles, you focus solely on leisure, never-ending leisure. I think it's a bit neater than you have androids take care of your necessities and instead focus on leisure. I think this reads more like natural dialogue. Gee, that sounds terrible. Sometimes you don't need any dialogue tags to get sarcasm across. I think this is nice that Nick chose not to add a sarcasm indicator. There's no way this could be misconstrued as not sarcasm, so yeah. And I like that the author assumed that I knew that it was sarcasm. Made me feel smart. Yeah, so no, you don't understand. After, I'd like another one of these if you don't mind, Nick. Nick knows what these are. TTLACC knows what these are, but if anyone doesn't know what these are, expand out with a bit more dialogue stuff. No, that's not a good description, is it? I think we need Juliet doing a little action before we launch back into the dialogue here, like hand under the chin sort of thing, or looking out the window, something to keep the dialogue from flowing too quickly. After a while, it doesn't matter what you do or how good it once felt to do it. It all becomes stale. My life is no less repetitive and no more interesting than yours. Alrighty. If you don't mind, I'd just like to take a 3 or 4 minute break. I'm just gonna make a tea for myself, if you don't mind. So I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Okay, I'm back. I had the Jungle Book stuck in my head as I was making tea. All the way through. It's funny what sort of gets inside your head just from a small trigger. Bad necessities. Anyway. Still the worst things you could have stuck on your head. Jungle Books. Pretty fun. So, that was an interesting new movie, actually. The remake of A Jungle Book with the live action and CGI elements mixed together. I mean, I always prefer flat animations to the CGI remakes, but and you know, not trying to be a snob or anything. I just like the animation style better, I guess. That was interesting too because it's quite a tonal shift between like a quite happy-go-lucky cartoon balanced against the newer version, which is a lot more dark and gritty, and a lot of opportunity for humor and for just general jovialness, I guess. If you go a bit dark, you sort of lose a bit of that whimsical fun of it, I suppose. So, and there's a lesson in there for writing too, as well. If you want to, um, trying to balance darker moments and lighter moments gets exceedingly hard when your story has been nothing but dark. And sometimes, you know, the contrast is really nice, but I don't know. It's something that's quite difficult to balance, I think. Anyway, that's another thought for another time. Why don't we jump back in to editing? So, my life is no less repetitive. Let's agree to disagree. A gentle hum as the android makes its way back towards me. That's a really minor suggestion. You can even ignore that if you want. But I just wanted to highlight that it's coming back. He puts a glass with one ice cube down on the wooden table in front of me, then pours. Make it a double. I watched amused. You need to separate out these with commas, because there's different phrases. As its eyes glow ever so slightly green, and swallows back its annoyance, and its eyes fade back. So we've got back and back here, and I just put another back in there as well. So let's get rid of that back. Back to no back. And it swallows its annoyance, and its eyes fade back to their normal nonplussed white. Nonplussed actually doesn't mean what we think it means. I only learned this recently. Nonplussed means oh no, it does think what we mean it thinks. Let me double check that. Oh no. It's got two meanings that are opposite to each other. Oh, what's going on? Nonplussed has two meanings. It's an adjective. The 17th century use of the word nonplussed meant bewildered. The 20th century North American version means unfazed. Why you got to do this, America? Why? Come on, guys. England gave you a language, and they trusted you to not screw it up. You had one job: don't screw up the English language. You screwed it up. So in recent usage, nonplussed has acquired the alternative meaning of unimpressed. I'm quoting Wiktionary here. In 1999, this was considered a neologism, ostensibly from not plussed. Although plussed by itself is not recognised as an English word, thus unimpressed meaning is prescribed as non-standard by at least one authoritative source. And there's a citation there if you want to go and check that out. This is nonplussed. Let me go back to here. Nonplussed. Super interesting how a word can be so messy. Damn. Like, why? We should all just agree that it means something, one thing or not the other. So yeah, nonplussed white, fine. Unless you're from the 16th century, sorry, 17th century, in which case, not fine. And 17th century me will have a spasm at you. But 20th century me will be a-okay with that. Just fine. So it swallows its annoyance, and its eyes fade back to their normal nonplussed way. I want to get rid of the double its here. It's. I watch amused as its eyes glow ever so slightly green. Swallows its annoyance, and its eyes fade back to their normal nonplussed way. There's a lot of its in a sentence, especially funny because we've actually it started off as an it, and then it went to he, and then it's back to an it. So Nick, I think you're gonna have to choose one pronoun for the android. He is nice because it adds a bit of character. It is also good if you want to make it less human. So choose one and stick with it, basically. I watched amused as its eyes glow ever so slightly green. What about as... oh look, this is an ly adjective. DLACC. Ever so slightly is technically an ly adjective. This is a good one, actually. Yeah, but I'm going to change it a little bit and keep the ever so slight. As an ever so slight green tinge washes over its eye orbs. Swallowing whatever mechanical pride has, the android. Oh, Google suggestions. What are you doing? Pause my drink with a nonplussed white gaze. Okay. Very slightly green. Yeah, that doesn't look as good though, does it? Yeah, isn't it funny? When I see very slightly green, that doesn't read as strong as ever so slightly green or ever so slight green. I wonder why. Which do you prefer, TTLACC? Ever so slightly or very slightly? So, it is very, or it is, ooh. Where the hell did you come from, XL? Bye-bye? Ever so, I prefer ever so as well. Good point, yes. Is it very, or is it slightly? Yes, ever so doesn't run into that problem too. So very slightly would be kind of fun if you were writing like an Alice in Wonderland style children's book where you want to have those sorts of contradictions everywhere. That could be a bit of fun to throw in. It's like using it's not an oxymoron, it's just a contrast thing, like a monstrously quiet squeak, for instance. And if it was a monster, double points, because you've got the monster pun and then you've got monstrously quiet as well. So sometimes it's actually kind of fun to have very slightly green. Because then, like, if a child is reading that and they ask their parents why what's going on with those words, and then it adds a bit of fun to it, I think. Yeah, it doesn't add anything important, but it's fun to read the phrase. Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to sum up that whole thing there. It is a fun phrase to read, isn't it? Yeah. I watch amused as an ever so slight green tinge washes over its eye orbs. So we've still got one it's there. Swallowing whatever mechanical pride it has, the android pours my drink with a nonplussed white gaze. It then pours Juliet a glass of water with 2 ice cubes before taking its leave. You should have a real drink, I say. It'll loosen up your mind. Loosen your mind up. I think loosen up your mind. Oh, no, loosen your mind up's okay. Helps you think. You can put helps or help, either way. Let's agree to disagree, she says mockingly. I like how she threw his words back at him. I can't help laughing, or I can't help but laugh, either way. Outside my window, the plagued ocean looks like a huge glimmering sheet of black ice. Try to imagine what it must have looked like back when it was water. If it's ice, it's still technically water if it... Or it looks like a glimmering sheet of ice. Yeah, I wonder what the plague ocean's made of. That was something that came to my mind when I first read this, when it was habitable. That's the price of war, Juliet says. I turn to see her looking at me. It's a goddamn tragedy is what it is. It's also why we can't afford another war. There's already so little of the planet left habitable. Only a handful of settlements, and none so grand as Magnolia. Imagine if Magnolia was lost. Why would it be? Why would there be a war? Even if it turned out we're all clones. So this is obviously Juliet threatening him indirectly with PS. We're about to find this facility. You stumbled across it, obviously. The truth within's going to start a war. You don't want that, do you? So she's trying to lay the groundwork for that. What if half of us turn out to be clones, for example? No, I don't know. Maybe we could just try getting along. It doesn't work like that. What doesn't? Human nature. Yeah. Part of this green star thing as well is sometimes you want to mix up which character is doing the actions. So here it's... oops, sorry. In that case... Yeah. Sometimes you want to make sure that the you're not just heavily describing one character doing the dialogue breaking action. You want to mix it up between Juliet and David. So it doesn't work like that. What doesn't? Human nature. We're both quiet after that, and I can't stop myself from yawning. The nav system will take us to the coordinates. And from there, we'll have to get our hands a little dirty. The whiskey is like honey on my tongue. I close first, the window shutter, then my eyes, and allow my body to relax. Good, that's fine. It's short and snappy, and it gets us to the end of the phrase. So it's a bit... The yawning comes out of nowhere, maybe, but I can live with it. I kind of want it to wrap up, and after you have this dialogue punch, it's like being hit in the stomach, and you're like, ugh, okay, in a good way. That was a good thing. What it means though is that you want to wrap up quickly. You want to keep this as like the last impactful sting of the narrative. So then wrapping it up quickly is probably in everyone's best interest. Yeah. Wake up, sir. My eyes are bleary and reluctant to open fully. Yeah, that's an ly adverb that if you get rid of it, nothing is lost. My eyes are bleary and reluctant to open fully. It's like, you can take it or leave it. Get rid of it. I don't want to let go of the dream. I was with Juliet. She held out her hands. And I slowly pull off the soft velvet gloves that cover them now. That's a good throwback to chapter 1. Part 1. Her hands are like porcelain, so delicate and beautiful. Only, as I touch them, the porcelain begins to break, and her hands begin to fall away, disintegrating into dust. What the hell's wrong with me? Since when have I had... Since when did I have? Have I had? Because the dream occurred in the past, you need to use did. Sir, says the same android I met earlier. You have reached your destination. Miss Browning is waiting for you at the front of the plane. I yawn and stretch and undo my belt. The plane is rocking gently, and I glance out of the window to be met by an ocean of darkness swaying just outside. Good, I like that. I like how neat that is. Good morning, Juliet says. She's staying next to the plane's exit door, and she's wearing a full wetsuit. Covers all her body except her face, clinging tightly to her elegant curves. She holds a mask in her hand. Let's read to the end, and I'll come back and deal with this chapter here, or this subsection. Good morning, Juliet says. She's staying next to the plane's exit door, and she's wearing a full wetsuit. It covers all her body except her face, clinging tightly to her elegant curves. She holds a mask in her hand. Hey, I say, my voice sounding as rough as I feel. Hey. You going for a swim or something? Hopefully not. We have to transfer to the sub for the rest of the journey. This is just for the last part, in case we need to get out. And it's perhaps also a little precautionary. Right, sure. In case something goes wrong with the sub, we don't go in the plagued water often. Our equipment is not well tested, you know. But it should be fine. That's better. They can see me. We don't go into the plague water often. Our equipment is not well tested in it. But it should be fine. She nods to the bathroom behind me. Your wetsuit isn't there. Your suit isn't there. I walk into the bathroom and close the door after me. I take my gun out of my jacket and place it on the dresser. As I get changed into my wetsuit, I allow thoughts to brew in my mind. What if Eisenstadt is right? Say we're all clones, so what? Doesn't mean anything. Eisenstadt's the victim on the perpetrator on the run. He killed the doctor. Nothing's going to change because of it, unless there really could be war. And if we're all clones, what the hell happened to humanity? And there's the question of how Eisenstadt inherited all those voices. Step-backs don't go wrong. There's something else that bothers me too, something more immediate. I zip up the suit and leave the bathroom. Once out, Juliet asks as she gazes wide-eyed at the gun in my hand. Don't worry, the safety's on. Those things are highly illegal. You're not taking it on board the sub. Oh. Okay, well, maybe you know somewhere you can put it for safekeeping until we get back. I toss her the gun and she can't help but try to catch it. I watch her face as she fumbles, see the pain rise on her face before the gun clatters to the floor. I reach down and pick it up, then point it at Juliet. What are you doing? Take off the suit. What? Unless you want to be the second person murdered within 24 hours, take off the goddamn suit. It begins to shake. Please don't. The gun clicks. She slowly unzips the suit, revealing her toned, perfect body. That's enough, I say once it reaches the belly button. Now show me your hands. Please, I can explain. Show me your goddamn hands. As she turns them, I see the lines that run over them. Cuts that have already healed into scars. But not yet gone completely. Cuts from the glass that killed Dr. Omen. Okay. I didn't see that coming. Oh, interesting. So how did David figure it out? I want to go back into part 4. It's exciting. Okay, good. So let's go through this, and then I'll probably dip into part 4 for a bit. A framed murder? Precisely. Or maybe it's double framing, like she cut her own fingers to set herself up as a victim. No, to set herself up. But why don't she frame herself? I don't know. The plot thickens. But yes, a framed murder. Good morning, Juliet says. She's standing next to the plane's exit door. Stop. Bye. A full wetsuit clings. Covers her body. Cling tightly to her elegant curves. Everything is midnight black, save for... I'd also put in a reference to... I'd also include a reference here to the fact that she's covering her hands too. In the same way that she had gloves on before from the cuts. This is also interesting too. This was sort of foreshadowed here, wasn't it? Excuse me, I'm going to zoom in a bit. This is the section where we were talking about so David was recounting his dream about her hands. Excuse me. So here, this is a note to Nick. establish here that her hands are covered. Yeah, just laying the groundwork for that last scene. I think the dream does a fairly good job of not spoiling what's coming up, but it makes sense why he's having this dream and why he feels a bit odd. I'm gonna make another note about that down. Hey, I say, my voice sounding as rough as I feel. Fine. You're going for a swim or something? Hopefully not. We have to transfer to the sub for the rest of the journey. This is just for the last part, in case we need to get out. And it's perhaps also a little precautionary. Right, sure, in case something goes wrong with the sub. We don't go in the plaid water often. Our equipment is not well tested in it. But it should be fine. She nods to the bathroom behind me. Your suit isn't there. I walk into the bathroom and close the door after me. I take my gun out of my jacket and place it on my dresser. Good. That sets up a gun later. As I get changed into my wetsuit, I allow thoughts to brew in my mind. That's okay. I allow thoughts. You could also just say, like, thoughts brew uncontrollably in my mind. It depends if you want to. He wants to set the pace of his thinking, is the impression of the sentence. What if Eisenstadt is right? Say we're all clones, so what? It doesn't mean anything. Nothing's going to change because of it. Unless there really could be a war. And if we're all clones, what the hell happened to humanity? Then there's the question of how Eisenstadt inherited all those voices. Step-backs don't go wrong. Something else that bothers me too, something more immediate. Maybe refer back to an element of the dream here, and then you can use that as justification for the reader as to why, as to how David figured out that Juliet was acting strange. Sometimes dreams are like a real staple of the sort of noir fiction genre. They act as sort of crystallizing elements. Dreams are super useful for this. Crystallizing is spelled correctly. I zip up the suit and leave the bathroom. Good, so it does need a little something here. And then, action. I zip up the suit and leave the bathroom. What's that? Juliet asks. As she gazes wide-eyed, and the gun in my hand. Don't worry if the safety's on. Those things are highly illegal. You're not taking it on board the sub. Oh, okay, well, maybe you know somewhere you can put it for safekeeping until we get back. I toss her the gun, and she can't help but try to catch it. I watch her face as she fumbles, see the pain rise on her face before the gun clatters to the floor. When I first read this, I assumed it was like a surprised pain, like, oh, kind of thing. But he's testing her. I toss the gun and she can't help but try to catch it. I watch her face split with pain as she fumbles. See her recoil. Shake her hands as the gun clatters to the floor. I reach down to pick it up, then point it to Juliet. So, yeah. Some line like... It needs a line that tells the reader that his little test worked. I don't know what to say. Gun clatters to the floor. So I've been right all along or something. But let's read it through and I'll see if I can think of something better to suggest. I reach down and pick it up and point it to Juliet. What are you doing? Take off the suit. How considerate of me. He doesn't say catch. That'd actually be not bad actually. It's like, hey, catch. I'm actually tempted to put that in because I think that would add like a little bit of cheek to it. What do you think, TTLACC? I agree. It's very, very inconsiderate of him. Why don't we make him a considerate fellow and give her a bit of forewarning? Also, if you prime people for a response to it, it actually makes sense in a story narrative. If you just throw something at someone, they might not respond to it. Here, catch. You can't not help but be like, you know, you've got in your mind, catch, 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 and something's coming towards you. It's like a psychological thing. Yep. Plus, you know, it's just good manners, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, this is entirely optional though, but I think psychologically it makes sense. I reached down to pick it up, then pointed to Juliet. What are you doing? Take off the suit. What? Unless you want to be the second person murdered within 24 hours, take off the goddamn suit. It begins to shake. Please don't. The gun clicks. So actually, I don't think you need any sort of linker here between like, oh, it was a test and she failed it. I kind of like it just to be smooth and cold, and then by here, when she says please don't, I, as a reader, my initial read through, I was like, something's up. But now that I'm reading through it again, I think it happens a bit further up too. The gun clicks, meaning that the safety's off. Fine. She slowly unzips the suit, revealing a toned, perfect body. That's enough, I say once it reaches her belly button. Now show me your hands. Please, I can explain. Show me your goddamn hands. She turns. Them. So you want to fix this up. Can... Hey, Rowan Jessica. Yes, Mystique get a bit sexy here. I was just going to make a comment on it too. Why does he make her take off the front part of her wetsuit? I mean, he's you could play it a couple of ways. If he wants a cheeky perv, then he's gonna have to inject some more of his voice in there. He doesn't strike me though as the kind of character that would do that. Especially given the context of the story, where he's been alive for so long, and all of his something's brewing up in my head. Good. That's fine. Yeah, that's true. She could be hiding a weapon. That's potentially true. Yep. That's probably justification for why he makes her do that. That's probably the cleanest justification. That's also true to TLACC. That may be one thing that hasn't like his lustful flame hasn't dimmed over the centuries. That sort of thing. There are two options here. You either get rid of it, because I think in its current form, there's no explanation for why it's there. He doesn't say he's doing it for safety reasons. We don't get an inkling as to why David is doing this. I think we should keep it in though, but I think we can be really clever with this. From the response of you guys, you seem to really enjoy this scene. Geez, I wonder why. But there's something really clever that you can do here that I just thought of. It's that idea about how... Also, welcome back, Rowan Jessica. Hi, good to see you again. I guess it's the idea of how after so long of being alive for so long without having his memories skimmed, this is one thing that he's still interested in, like, you know, nudity, sex. Or alternatively, he gets her to do it partly to check that she's unarmed, and then he looks at her and he's just like, nah, I don't feel anything. That would be interesting too, because it really ties in with this idea that, like, people need to have their memories skimmed in order for them to live a hedonistic life over and over and over again. Hi. I want to suggest that to Nick. I think that'd be a really interesting psychological point. Take off the suit. So I had a bit of a discussion about this at 1 hour 5 minutes, but I'll write it out too. In its current form, we don't really get a sense of why David, the character, not Nick the writer, why David asks her to unzip the front of her suit. If he's doing it for safety purposes, reveal concealed weapon, then I'd like a line minimum on but I'd like a simple indicator for reader confirmation, for the sake of reader confirmation, So for example, that would look like good. Like that, for instance, like she slowly unzips the suit, revealing her toned, perfect body. Good, no knife, no gun, nothing, whatever. Something simple like that. If you want to play on David's lust, you can. Haven't seen a I haven't seen a pair of tits as good as these in hundreds of years. I think the style of writing and the type of character that David is would warrant that sort of objectification too. In that he's that kind of, you know, boy's boy. So you can sort of take whatever sort of social implications that could have. For instance, that would really depend on David's character itself. Noir protagonists are notoriously boozy, womanizing. You know, it's that sort of style of like classic, old style manhood too. So if you want to bleed it through into this story, then that's fine too. I think it fits the character. However, you can do something really special here. So, sorry, I'll just go up and read up. It turns out that he isn't aroused by nudity, and the mentioning of our curves when he woke up from the dream should be looked at. Thank you, that's good consistency, yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point to DLACC. If we're going to go down this route of he's not aroused by her, then we're going to have to keep that consistent here. Now, we could get him to note that elegant curves. I'm going to put that in like deep purple. Remember before when I highlighted it occurs in deep purple, start of this mini section. If you're going to construct some sort of desensitization, desensitization. No, I've seen better. Yeah, like that, but sadder. Like that, but like, I don't feel anything anymore. That sort of deep emptiness is what I'm trying to convey. Not so much like a blasé response, which would sort of be like the counterpart of part 2. Or I've seen better. Which is like a sort of nice reader suggestion. If you don't mind me sticking that there, GTLACC. If you want to go for a more blasé route, if you're going to consider some sort of desensitization, then keep cool. Thanks, GT. Yeah, I'll stick it in there. I think it fits in with the theme of what we're talking about. And can be less consistent. Why do I recommend this? I recommend this last part because it ties in with the overall theme of skimming, overdone experiences, dull life, etc., etc., etc. What happens to a man when he's lived for so long? How does it change his perception of what we take for granted? Yeah, there's a huge amount that can be said about this little section here. Yeah, absolutely lots. I think in its current state it does need to change because it happens suddenly and it happens without David telling you or showing you why he's doing what he's doing. Like, I had to take a guess, and you guys probably got there a bit quicker than me, that he made her unzip her wetsuit because he was checking for a safety thing. Yeah, and I'm just wondering if, like, because of the hand fetish thing that David was questioning himself about before, whether that should be played up here as well. How does David feel about seeing those nice hands all scarred? Does that upset him more than the green inside her naked? I'm gonna take that and actually put it this one here. Good. Find a new fetish after every century passes, and the fetish helps him with every past case. It's a really weird idea. Like, he remembers all of his cases by the fetish that he developed during them. That's super weird. You keep an idea to yourself, TTLACC. Interesting, the idea though. Like, if you wanted to write a story where, like, thousands of years have passed and human beings are just so bored with themselves that they have to do something like that to keep themselves interested, that would be an interesting story. Because then you could be super transgressive. You could just be weird beyond all recognition. I feel like enough time has passed for an idea that bizarre to find home within this story structure. It's a weird idea. Good. I think we talked about that enough. there's so much you can do with that, so much character potential, and it wouldn't take all that much to add in for it to become a really interesting moment. So yeah, cool. It's 10:30 here, my time. Let's go to part 4. Part 4, yay! Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to excuse me, I'm going to stop the stream and then update the title and then start it up again. So stick around, guys. All that will happen is that I'll just be out for a minute. I'll do that so that Nick can easily see part 3 and part 4 edits, and so he can stop and start then. So stick around. I'll be back in a sec.